Thank you for joining us around the world. Let's get this one off, Atlas.
Yep. Pick and ban for game number 1, Griffin versus SKT. And in fact, the sides are what we need to start with. This is very important because Red side has been winning more than it's been losing, as Griffin do have a little bit more flexibility in the ban. And the first one, interestingly, is going to be Marta's Thresh.
First ban to a champion he's only played once this season. Definitely rising in priority now that Rakan is kind of away from first round consideration. We saw a little bit of the recently aged Rakan who just can't get to the fights quite as early.
He hobbles on in. It's
he used
not
to
as grand as it used
RSVP
to
and be fashionably early, but no longer is he early. He's definitely on the late side. Akali, one of the reasons that Chovy has been able to pop off 5-0 on the Akali, so definitely win rate wise, you're liking that ban from SKT.
And of course, Teddy, 6 games so far on the Ezreal. Hasn't been able to win all of them, but has certainly looked dominant in the ones that he's been able to take down. A couple of the losses that SKT have faced were when Teddy was on the Ezreal, but it hasn't been his fault when they've been suffering game losses.
I wonder if SKT want to force Griffin into a situation where they feel pressured into first picking Lucian, because Ezreal has been a fallback quite a lot for Viper. When he's not playing an awesome dude, he's kind of on Lucian duty, but Lucian as a mid-range lane bully has some out-of-the-box counters that can work against it. So right now, with the Ezreal ban, I'm wondering what will come together here in the draft.
I love that you mentioned that as well, actually, because I feel like Lucian really is an ace card, because we know Teddy is a fantastic Draven player. Haven't seen Viper dabble with it just yet, and we know that Draven can be laned into the Lucian relatively effectively. Alistair going to be the final ban here on the side of Griffin, and SKT need to round theirs out.
The ace card I'm looking for, though, is Kalista. Maybe the Thresh and Alistair bans are also indicative of the potential of Teddy picking that one up. It's usually a duo, and it will be
not
a
going to roll the dice.
Lucian ban. So they also are not into any Lucian priority on both sides. First, I thought Griffin were considering banning it, and then SKT also. Razor focused on the bot lane. So that's actually 4 bot lane bans in a meta that hasn't really been all about bot lane. Griffin will first pick Aatrox over Urgot. So Urgot Lissandra, Urgot Galio, the favorite duos of SKT and Kesper Cup, they wouldn't even consider it. They'd lock it in on the red side in the first round. They're both available. We'll see where their priorities are. Tarzan has popularized the Redemption Rush Olaf. That is very, very hard to out-skirmish, and it might just be a pick away by Clint.
Yeah, and I feel like it definitely is exactly that. More of a pick away, as we do have a hover of the Riven. 20 seconds to go, and you and I have been looking at some of these LPL stats, and Riven's looking pretty good in 2019.
Not a meme champion right now. Jinnu 2-0 on that pick, popped off in the LPL, and Khan has played the Riven. I believe got a pentakill on the Riven, if I'm remembering correctly, but definitely dominated a game on that pick. It was Riven versus Urgot in the matchup, but this is Sword, someone we don't expect to be jumping onto the Riven dude. We think there's going to be a Sion here. That's what he's been playing pretty reliably. Sion, Urgot, Victor, only champions he's played, and only multiple picks are Sion and Urgot. I think Sion 100% locked in here, and would lend credence to this potentially being a jungle Aatrox from Tarzan.
And we know that Tarzan is absolutely unstoppable. On the Aatrox as well, haven't seen Griffin pick it up that often because it's often in the ban list. Not this time around, though. They're going to be able to get that first pick. Sion locked in. Chovy thinking about that final pick for our first round. What is it going to be? Are they going to be looking towards bottom side? Do they want to keep the flexes active? I think that makes a lot of sense, as the Braum is the one taken away. Not necessarily the highest priority support left available here for Lehens.
Very, very interesting, though, because I think it's situational what you want. Lehens has usually been on kind of Phil support. He's doing his best Spirit impression with Elise support, Ornn support.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ornn support is an important thing to mention here, because Marta has, so blocking Marta's Ornn support means that he has no longer access to that, his Alistair or his Thresh. All of his main playmaking supports, making sure that he has to hop on the Tahm Kench this time around.
And I think the last part is the most important things for viewers to take, is you kind of have to take Tahm Kench, otherwise champion pool with Rakan removed or soft removed with the 9.2 nerfs gets a bit tricky, so you can't afford to absorb any bans. What that does mean is they give up any other priority 80 carry picks for Teddy. 80 carry bans could come out from Griffin, because right now it's flex solo laner and bot lane champions who are going to be targeted when it comes to SKT. The jungle pool could get tighter, and I feel like right now Clid is saying, no, you are going to be on Aatrox. We could ban more junglers and basically pigeonhole you onto that jungle Aatrox.
And at the moment on SKT side, it's looking like a last pick for Khan on the top side of the map. Already we had the Riven hover. Khan was A fantastic Riven player back in the day, but you need a lot of confidence to pick that in competitive play, as Varus is going to hit the bench, like you say, attacking Teddy's champion pool.
Blind pick AD carries are starting to fall down tiers. I guess Xayah would probably be the strongest laning AD carry remaining.
Ash feels
decent
fantastic
choice
here
with
as
Tahm
well with
Kench.
Tahm Kench, yeah. Gen.G, of course, poisoning my mind a little bit as far as Ash, Tahm Kench, blind pick ability.
3 champions here, pretty strong against an Ash, though.
Yeah.
Scion threat, the Braum with the ability to just pop the Unbreakable and trivialize the Ash Arrow power. Zac blind ban, very interesting. Just expecting a tank jungler to join what seems like a tanky crew. And now, if you see a Sejuani Zac ban, kind of feel like that SKT is predicting something like a Sivir to go along with this team comp, even though it's not really in the effective pool of Viper.
And when are we going to see an awesome dude as well? I mean, both of these teams can do it. Teddy was actually one of our good Vladimir bottom lane players, and Viper can go into it. That looks
feels like a Vladimir time.
This feels like a Victor bot lane as well. It's not likely that Khan's going to be taking that based on the availability of AD carries here for Teddy. In theory, they could hold it and flex it.
I actually think this is a real flex rather than Teddy saying, no, I'm going Victor bottom. Some teams, like if Ghost is locking this in, I'm with you.
That's true, yeah.
But because of what's going on here, I think SKT are hedging their bets. They're ready for a Vladimir. I think they're very aware that Vladimir into Victor bottom lane could be a matchup. But it's going to be the Kai'Sa, so it's going to be more of just the standard tier list AD carries, not the Sivir we might have predicted, but still has great synergy with all the hard CC that's been locked in by Griffin.
I do actually really like the way we've been thinking about this whole thing, because I feel like Griffin have made the assessment that that will be a bottom lane Victor as well, because it is a relatively free lane. Of course, Victor is going to push and poke, things like that, but he's not going to hard win the lane for you down there, especially when paired with a Tahm Kench. Lissandra going to be the final lock-in here from Griffin. A lot of team fight power for this squad, especially as we move later into the game.
But it's kind of only team fight. It's basically mid-range setup champions and Kai'Sa penta-killed you. That's kind of what they got going on the side of Griffin. The siege here is pretty abysmal on their side, and it's going to be no AD carry, no marksman on the side of SKT. They go for a last pick on the Ryze here. See what the matchup decision is between the two. Ryze can lane against Scion, but does price it in to some purchases of the MR here. We're going to see the last decision here. Faker has largely been on Urgot duty. That's why I think most people are plugging and playing with that. That means that Teddy and Mata kind of looking to just abdicate the laning phase on this Victor. They could have gone in so many different ways. Draven had so many different CC threats that I think it was too risky for Teddy to go that way. But now we just come to this interesting quandary
here
where
we go.
Consistent damage on the side of SKT is pretty minimal, and it is the last second flex to the Urgot top lane and Ryze mid lane after all.
And Ryze, I mean, to counter your point just a little bit, I guess, is that Ryze is our machine gun mage, can throw out a lot of spells if he can make it to a late game stage where he can free hit with those casts.
Do any of them damage Scion?
Yeah, well, I'm not entirely sure about that. And honestly, if this game goes late enough, I don't know whether anyone damages Scion. As this is going to be a Griffin team composition, and it feels like we're back at the beginning of Griffin's reign of 2018, because this is a late-game team-fighting squad that just wants to get behind Viper, much like how they dominated challenges when they were there.
If you're familiar with the ancient Rome adage, it's kind of like two Phalanx comps, right? They're both supremely tanky. The only person actually building attack speed and working their way towards critical strike later in the game is Viper. Everyone else is pseudo-tank frontline. Burst damage against Scion, who can stack magic resist and health and feel basically unkillable. Should be really powerful for Griffin moving on, but it's time to get those cheers and get the game started.
Yeah, looking exciting. Here we are, game number 1. Does feel a little bit from what I can hear in my ears, Papa Smithy, that we are on the Griffin side of LoL Park. SKT faithful on the opposite side as Griffin facing off against SKT. Game number 1. A lot of priority going into the picks on the side of Griffin. Tarzan back on the Aatrox jungle that was so formidable the last time he was allowed to play it. Hasn't been allowed back on this pick for a long time.
So what do SKT have? Because again, we see no marksman champion. You worry about late game team fights. I think that's founded. I think there are some issues there, but they have priority in lanes and an Olaf running around. And right now we know that you rush redemption first on Olaf, and it's very hard to out-skirmish you. in an early game meta where you can get 6,000 gold leads pretty bloodlessly by stacking turret plates. It might take a bit of time. Maybe you need that first item on the Victor. But there's definitely some breakpoints early where Griffin will do well to wave the white flag a bit. And if SKT can recreate some of their really smart early warding, which, again, hasn't been there every game. There hasn't been that consistency from the SKT Dream Team. When they've been on, they've been really on. And you have to imagine that Coma, Zephyr, and the rest of the squad have been burning the midnight oil to be ready for this, the banner matchup in January. Yeah,
and you know both of these teams have been prepping for each other for as much time as they possibly have been. This is the matchup that they've both been waiting for. And SKT, see whether they've masterminded it enough here to take a game off Griffin, because the onus feels like it's on SKT in this series. As Sword already taking a lot of damage from Khan up top lane. Has been the way for Scions in the early levels against the Urgot, but this is 9.2, remember. Urgot taking a little bit of a hit when it comes to what he can do early.
And early, that's where Griffin have some questions, because we know one item power spike on Kai'Sa, not going to be great. Sword's one item power spike is usually going into the Righteous Glory. He'll still probably have to build that because of lane, but that doesn't help him with stacking magic resist and feeling good in the late game. So the early item purchases should be really advantageous to the side of SKT. Redemption on Olaf, first item Hex Core onto Teddy on this Victor, and those are where Griffin should be trading down the majority of the time. In those times, SKT need turret plates, they need Drakes, they need to start up some neutral snowball, because there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel for Griffin when we get to the 3-4 item stage, and SKT hoping there's a 10,000 gold lead before anything like that happens.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that it's going to have a lot to do with what Clid can actually make happen in this earlier game, because as soon as an Olaf can run at you with Reckless Abandon and his ultimate up, all this CC and teamfight control that Griffin have means absolutely nothing. And right now, going for this level 4 gank, only level 3 on the top laner of Sword. Now thinking about heading down to try and get some vision.
Spotted by the plant there. Very important that he's spotted. Sort of gank timing that would come off and you'd say, okay, pretty standard gank path. But remember, that's a level 4 power farm with no shot from Clid. It's a timer you don't respect. A level 4 Olaf, top lane at 3 minutes 30. Because usually you go back and get a keystone, right? With Predator. You have no keystone and you're level 4, so it was a surprising gank timing and good awareness from Tarzan to spot it out.
Yep. Does go back though, after he was spotted. Grabs those boots, building towards his skirmisher saber most likely, and then into the redemption after that. It's the order that we have seen thus far on the Olaf with this new flavor that Tarzan brought to us.
Tarzan's finally come down to earth a bit after being of a different world in the first week when he was stacking MVPs. No MVPs in second week of the LCK for him. Was caught out multiple times by Bono in a big skirmishing disadvantage matchup. That's with him on Sejuani duty. This time he's on the Aatrox, and while he doesn't necessarily relish all skirmishes against Olaf, there are scenarios you can win that. So right now, just going for the coverage. What is it all leading to? When the Clid hits his first lane successfully, we'll find out.
Yeah, that's going to be the scary part. And speaking of scary things, this is Viper free farming. On the Kai'Sa, Tarzan paying some attention down bottom side, but wards are there. Martyr, I believe, made his way into the jungle just to make sure that they had some extra information. And Clid not going to be spotted on this one, but is spotted on the ward.
You look back to that warding effort SKT had against a Camille jungle, and it was among the best we've seen ever, especially in a meta in 2019 season where there's less wards than ever before. They lit up the enemy champion. Camille could never find an engage, and that was just a amazing performance on a macro level by SKT in a meta where some people say you can't play macro because of some of the reduction in wards available. So we're going to definitely be watching close. Right now, the action isn't coming in terms of kills, but in terms of map control can be important, and Khan and Sword, that's a pretty low health bar on the Urgot.
Yep, Clid is top side of the map, and Tarzan's nowhere to be seen, but thankfully, Khan does have that ward, giving him information that there is no Aatrox coming in to mow him down. As I've sought how to hit that, Khan would be almost in flash range of death.
And Tarzan's saying, I'm just going to make sure that a turret plate goes the way of my ally or the first back timing comes in. Speaking of turret plates, turret plate in the mid lane. Turret going down early here. They love to shop here, get one items going on the side of SKT. We already mentioned that's where the early game starts to pick up for them. But now, though, things very, very comfortable for Griffin. And I want to talk a little bit about early game stats. It wasn't somewhere that Griffin excelled in. Remember, they were largely about late game team fighting for the majority of the early part of LCK Summer 2018, their big debut. Right now, in the first 15 minutes, Griffin's average gold lead, and remember they haven't lost a game, so it's going to be a good number. It's 3,326 gold. Insane stat, by far, outnumbering anyone else. If you compare it to SKT, they average a 151 gold lead.
Yeah.
So over 3,000 gold behind. Think of the CS. At 15 minutes, on average, Griffin as a team is up 43.5 CS. SKT's actually down 6.6 CS. So that's a 50 CS turnaround at 15 minutes. I don't think we're going to see numbers like this in game number 1, but it just shows you how razor-sharp Griffin have been so far in the early parts of LCK Spring. And that 18-0 is no trick. That is very much about their excellent performance.
And I also love that the Dragon RNG has understood how hyped this series is. We've got an Infernal to start this one off already. Vision being traded by both teams, currently Griffin. With that vision advantage, Teddy underneath this turret. His awesome dude 9 CS behind the Kai'Sa at the moment, who goes back, can't quite afford the BF sword on the first back, but heading towards that Storm Razor pretty comfortably is Viper.
Continue to build, and we already mentioned, so wait a while at the moment for Griffin. That doesn't mean they're going to give anything up for free, and they actually have a slight CS lead in a couple of lanes.
Interesting that Lost Chapter was picked up here by Teddy as well, wanting to hold on to his mana a little bit better. Doesn't have that Hex Core upgrade just yet.
Actually is relevant to talk about victor items more and more. In bad lanes, we see the Hex Cloak sometimes skipped over for a while to try to build battle stats, maybe a Megatron Cloak in a mage versus mage top lane matchup. So, like you say, he's not going to trim the waves as auto-quick, but he's not going to be running short on mana, so you still have some good mana and wave manipulation options if you don't have to worry about your mana bar and can use it for harass and wave clear basically off cooldown.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what he can do with the Lost Chapter. That's the option that he's given. Is Death Ray going to go wide just there? But we saw already Viper's health bar was halved. Now Marta hanging around in this minion wave that SKT have full control of. Now with priority on this bottom side, you can see Faker was moving his way down there and cleared. Has free opportunity to get towards this Dragon Pit. Not actually going to clear out that control ward in the back of the pit just yet.
Would undo SKT's early priority to lose an Infernal. That is the thing SKT cannot allow to happen, as it will be very against the tempo of play we're seeing, where bot lane and the Lost Chapter purchase confirms that Teddy's controlling this lane. To me, it's a bit like Tyr versus Sheen on an Ezreal. I feel like Lost Chapter gives you quite a lot of reliable wave control.
Yeah.
And if you just get the E evolve, you push, but you don't necessarily... Can't always push on command at every moment unless you can go back TP and refill your mana. So it's a bit more reliable a way to just always be chipping away at either the minion wave or the enemy health bar, compared to just going for the no-think death ray that most people would do.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to get to those 2 evolutions as quickly as possible. I think perfect Hex Score is still a little bit of a luxury to get to in the earlier stage of the game, as Tarzan, yeah, well, I mean, he's not going to have any mana problems anymore, Pup Smithy.
Yeah,
that is a whoopsie.
Not the best look, and it will mean that Ryze, with blue buff, should have some good pushing options onto Lissandra, even with many Ryze nerfs over time. That blue buff not going to be worn by Faker just yet.
Yeah, going to be coming in the next little while. Hopefully taking a little bit longer to get there, as Faker does have a control ward down here. Low mana bar here for Chovy as Tarzan jumps on over. Faker chose the wrong time to go aggressive, as the cleanse is relatively late, but in goes Clid now to save his mid laner, and is going to be able to do so. Just the cleanse. Faker holds onto his flash.
Played close enough that it's only a single summoner. So very steadfast there from Faker, famous for never using his summoner spells unless he has to in the past. Needed to be steadfast, can't afford to lose summoners, but do notice has gone Sorcerer's Shoes because he has the cleanse. Now with cleanse on cooldown, could be taken down. A sword needs to go for a quick drift out of lane.
Yeah, the choo-choo train not going to be available for the next little while, so good to be able to get that cooldown, but still, Flash is being held onto by both solo laners of Griffin. Death Ray not quite making it. Over to Viper there, who's holding onto his health bar nicely down bottom side and continues to have a big CS advantage. You can see another 5 are going to be crashing into this turret that he's going to be able to pick up and continue having a pretty dominant lead as far as farm in a matchup that he shouldn't necessarily be able to.
Observers showed this one, Atlas, but no points in W till level 8 seems to be Teddy's decision for this lane, and I think it's actually skilling towards the items you're building. He's only going for harassment options, which are, I'm either going to Death Ray the minion and the enemy champions, or just the enemy champions, and I'm always going to be queuing off cooldown because I need to actually keep using what Lost Chapter gives me. So I actually like there, just going for that little bit of extra oomph on the queue. Ooh. The Hens and Viper weren't sure whether Teddy and Marta had backed. The Hens gets the bad news.
Yeah, Teddy going to throw down his Chaos Storm onto the Hens here, the Unbreakable. able to help block things, get him out of the lane.
And this is so cute. Clarity used by Mata. They want to get the Infernal, so they're using everything on the minion wave to get the first spawn Infernal.
They are going to try to, but Clid opts
they
out
don't
of
feel
it.
confident.
Yeah, Tarzan's down there. I do like the idea. Clid registers the undertow on the Aatrox. Faker with a wave heading towards him, though. Will be relatively safe from the potential gank. Level 8 for Tarzan, so World Ender is available, of course, so diving is an option in any of these lanes.
First time I've ever seen a bot lane 11-minute Ludens on Victor, but that is some good wave deletion, whether you have the death rate upgrade or no. Still no move towards the Infernal, and feel like SKT right now should definitely be considering it, and Clid is actually not rushed redemption. Let's talk about his item here.
True.
Was sitting on the Ruby Crystal, and even though it gives all those skirmishing options, he's disagreeing with Tarzan's recent moves and just going selfishly for this Cinderhulk. It does mean he has more combat stats, but doesn't have that 2v2, 3v3 utility that the Redemption provides.
And can certainly mow down his jungle camps much faster, can allow himself to be more available for ganks as well, in theory. And Clid does like to get things done in the early game. Of course, kill participation is a stat that Clid certainly has over Tarzan, and having stats over Tarzan is no mean feat. His Faker is going to be able to lock down his blue buff. And Viper now, like you say, has a Luden's Echo to contend with.
Definitely does more damage to champions than ever before. No death ray can copy that as Griffin pushing the mid lane. They've actually got 3 turret plates down.
Yeah, that is a huge amount of damage to the turret so far as Sword in trouble. The ultimate still there for Khan. There's a visual bug slightly, but Khan with the exhaust holds onto it. Thought maybe could have gone for that fight, but not going to in the end.
Khan will get opportunities to attack lane because Sword refuses to crib any nodes from the Shy and go for things like Iceborne Gauntlet, items that allow Sion to fight back in the Urgot matchup. He always goes team utility and starts with the Righteous Glory. Speaking of team utility, we're zooming out here to understand the bot lane play again. Because there's a Luden's completion, you always do more damage to champions with this build, and trying to keep Viper and Lehen's health bar in order, but right now, it's not actually paying off. The only reason you want to keep the enemy health bars low is to either go for a kill or to get objectives on that side of the map. So not actually getting the Cinderhulk here is feeling like a bit conservative of play from the trio and the bot side if you include Clid on SKT.
Yeah. It looks like Clid is just going to still go for the redemption, but he's going to go for it next. Forbidden Idol has been completed already. Because Teddy's Qs are really hurting.
Yep. Q&E, both going to be hurting against champions.
Damn.
Cinderhulk, to me, over Redemption, only really works for sure in turret dive scenarios because of the extra health. Like has to Realm Warp, a very short hop to mid lane.
Yeah, I don't
just
even
to
know
keep
that
up
was
this
worth it.
turret. Chovy's been able to have great priority in this lane. And Faker not fighting back in terms of immediate stats. He's also going for a bit of a wait-and-see approach, working on the Saris, which is not an abnormal choice, but does mean he has precious little magic resist on a gank.
Yeah. Not grabbing the Catalyst first is an interesting one as the exhaust used onto Sword. Cycling the flash is Khan. Still has that teleport available, wanting to make sure that he could get down for any plays, even if Sword was absent from the lane. Being able to follow the Scion just is so important for SKT, especially against Griffin. I feel like this first skirmish in this game that hasn't broken out just yet is so important. But right now, Griffin are winning in this early game, and look at the tower damage in mid.
And I'm worried, Atlas, because SKT haven't min-maxed for those early one-item fights we talked about. Obviously, Seraph's is a wait-a-while item. It's not going to have immediate power at this current stage. It's not completed and transformed yet. The Redemption is the most power Olaf can pack, and they don't have that for teamfight utility. Only Victor has built for, I am going to do maximum damage to champions early, and he even has the Death Ray evolved now. Everyone else, I guess, of course, the Urgot does as well. But there's no guarantees SKT win this first fight as hard as we thought they might based on the champions. And we're already worried about where this game may scale to around the 25-minute mark.
Exactly. We're looking at that Kai'Sa, who still has the CS advantage, despite Victor still doing a good job down there. Stormrazor completed, getting closer and closer to having that double evolution that Kai'Sa absolutely loves. SKT, if they can get this Infernal Drake, that is going to be a huge thing. A little bit out of position are Griffin, but still not pulling the trigger as the Claw comes in.
Watching Tarzan here, just trying to cut Faker if he tries to walk too aggressively. Faker has a control ward to play to, so won't be face-checking the Aatrox and SKT must be frustrated that 16 minutes in, even with the build choices, they still don't have this first spawn Infernal.
Well, Faker is going to snare up Chovy for a moment. That Rune Prison allowing him to get some damage down as Khan and Sword continue to fight. Relevant, actually. The teleport's going to be less and less important as Realm Warp is actually going to get channeled. Faker and Clid delivered to the bottom side, but easily denied and punished instantly by Griffin.
Such a bloodless reaction too. Chovy got all the turret plates, barring maybe just one of them, at least 4, were claimed by him, so he's just banking a bigger and bigger gold lead. 15 minutes in, those CS leads we talked about, the average for Griffin 43.5. Seems like in hindsight they were actually pretty close to that. We're only looking at 17 minutes, but top lane 20 CS, mid lane 20 CS, even bot lane has a CS advantage. And usually if you're dropping CS, it's in service of objectives. Only now are SKT actually leashing the Drake.
Yep, and Clid is going to be able to start it up. They will lock it down. Of course, Griffin, you can see, moving their bottom lane towards top, the understandable decision to make. You want to knock down that top lane out of turret and end the laning phase as quickly as possible. Tarzan going to trade the Drake for the Rift Herald, give Griffin a little bit more early control over this map, and I can completely understand why they'd want to do that. Taking fights in the late game isn't going to be as much of a worry based on the champions they have, so giving up a scaling Drake might be a decision that you're okay with.
And also, they give up the scaling Drake, yes, which is what we expected based on the champ lineup. But at 17 minutes, that's the part we didn't expect. They waited until they got a trade of Rift Herald. It could have been way earlier than that, given how the lane went. So I think Griffin come out like bandits with this. I thought they get everything they want in the early game, and they're supremely confident both in innately their 5 players team fighting in the late game. We know that's one of the strengths of Griffin, but also the champion lineup they have here. So I need to watch and inspect where SKT actually start to ratchet up this game, because maybe they're just trusting in their excellence and execution as the game goes on, which to me seems stacked in the deck of Griffin.
Yeah, exactly. And it is represented here in the CS numbers. 17 ahead is Chovy on the Lissandra. A lot of utility that he's going to be bringing here as well. But Faker has one of the most greedy damage builds that we've seen on Arise for a long time. Oblivion Orb will be coming in as the next option for as much magic penetration as he can possibly get. See whether it's going to work once that item is actually completed.
If you out-rotate with Tahm Kench and Realm Warp, the magic resist isn't done, it will work. But a very smart deep ward you see there.
Yeah, Tarzan already
not aware of that one, that gives that extra information. Those are wards you put down against Abyssal Voyage, because that's area that is so often unexplored that if you're the Tahm Kench player, you almost never respect being spotted on a Abyssal Voyage from that range. So good advice for Soloku supports out there. Magic resist, you look down, there's none on the side of Griffin.
Yeah, not yet.
This is the time where greedy damage build works, and Griffin would do wise things to avoid any sort of skirmishes against double magic penetration, maximum damage rise.
Well, look at that ward that just cheekily misses this triangle. We talk about triangle vision a lot. I know it's one of Frostgrun's favorite things to talk about. That is an actual triangle created by control wards that SKT had down on the top side of the map, just trying to defend this bottom lane that's now top side as much as they possibly can. Similarly represented bot side by Griffin. Not as necessary, and does get cleaned out as Griffin do have some lane priority up on that top side.
2019 has kind of been a Bermuda Triangle for the LCK, because all of our established orgs, you're just watching Griffin, SKT based on hype, you might have missed so many of the top orgs, the teams that went to Worlds, falling away. Old veteran names that have spent 4 years solidifying their legacies, falling away into, at least based on week 3, something that starts approaching irrelevance. You know, it feels like Griffin, Sandbox, Damwon, those are the teams people are talking about. And SKT is the one holdout there. They're the team that seems to have been put together of players that are world-renowned, and then some new faces as well. Clid definitely bursting onto the scene after being outside of Worlds qualification in the LPL. This is supposed to be the team that kind of escapes that Bermuda Triangle and can really vouch for the previous generation from just stopping the new generation, the new blood from rising. Right now, the start has been slower than we might expect, but we still don't have the first flare point. We still don't have the first real skirmish, and we're 21 minutes into the game.
Yeah, out of a first blood at 21 minutes in. Just shows how much pressure both of these teams are feeling, not wanting to bite off more than they can chew. That's a slight visual bug, but Shelly is going to make her way out. Tarzan didn't take that extra journey. It's just, we wanted to have him in the shot for as long as possible. Shelly also going to make her way down, and this will be second turret taken. And when it comes to a bloodless game like this, the crazy thing and the intelligent thing here for Griffin is that they put the onus on SKT to move first. His teleport's coming in. I may have spoken too soon. As there's the knock-up. Chaos Storm comes down. Marta eats the Grey Health and is going to walk out, trading a whole bunch of buttons and summoner spells, but no one's going to die yet.
The result of that is inaction because no summoners have been blown this game. It's been so bloodless for 21 minutes that Flash Cleanse is up and face checks, risky to do against an Urgot. Griffin actually end up making the first real attempt at a 3v3, 4v4 in this game. It's repelled, but what does it mean? Because the timing, it's right on the cusp of 2 items on Kai'Sa, and based on our analysis in the champion select, it's right on the cusp of the first time that Griffin starts to outscale the SKT lineup. I think the Magic Resist purchases, which are only now beginning, will be the confirmation of that. The moment the Scion is able to eat 1 rotation from Ryze and Victor and only lose his shield and a little bit of health, that's where things feel like they're going to start to come unstuck.
Well, SKT currently looking for a fight here in the river as Lehen's going to take some damage, but that cusp that you were talking about, we're over it now as Viper has picked up his Rage Blade. Tarzan hanging around this area. I just think it's genius. To finish my point earlier on, put the onus on the older team, put the onus on the veterans to make the risky play in order to get an advantage early. And our double Infernal Drake is a difficult one as Tarzan not able to get into smite range, and this might help push SKT over the line when it comes to late game scaling, because 1 is bad, 2 is nutty when it comes to Infernals.
And no 1-item Magic Resist is going to help this Scion on the front line against double Infernal and Ryze and Victor, who have focused champion damage with their early purchases. So very nice pick up there on the second Infernal Drake. That was the sort of calculated risk that's required in the 2019 season. You need to play with incomplete information and be assertive, and SKT at the best, always able to do that in previous metas. Now you need to be even more risky, so good to see them actually pull the trigger on that Drake. They were slow on the first one, but the second one does follow swiftly.
Yes, it does. So that was a really, really good play from SKT, and if you're an SKT fan, you want to see more and more of that. Otherwise, Griffin are just going to take hold of this game, get that fight that we know Griffin always managed to find in the mid to late game, and then roll you over. It's just what happens, speaking from experience. But SKT, they've made other teams feel like this in the past. They have an opportunity to really assert their dominance against the new upstarts of the LCK. Griffin haven't won yet.
They have not, and it's moments like this where double TP was used by Griffin to no advantage, that Realm Warp and Abyssal Voyage, with all the damage built in the double Infernal, might find the pick that actually kicks this game into life. Pick into Baron turn, very possible. Baron damage on SKT, not the best. It's a lot of decent Baron takers, but no 80 carry, no Blade of Ruin King.
Yeah.
None of the usual things that lead to a fast Baron. But the pick with an out rotation is going to be always available for SKT because of their champion lineup. And now at least it's a bit of an ARAM. Waiting to see what the next movement in the game is. So much table setting. The sort of match that was table set from the first release of the schedule from Kesper. Now the game obliges as well, not with action, but with continued kind of foreboding until we get that first explosive moment, which might be coming now.
It could be. Infernal Chains are going to get flashed out of there by Marta as the Void Seeker going to find him. Also, Viper not going to Killer Instinct his way into 3 people, and Griffin are going to disengage. And you mentioned testing the waters, working out what you can take, what you can't. It's been only very, very small interactions that have given both of these teams the information they need. But okay, the train going to be paying a visit to Teddy. Has to flash to get out of the way of Sword, but that means this inner turret should be going down. Infernal Chains is there as Marta gets the Devour off. Chaos Storm already down. A lot of damage onto Tarzan, but the damage is being done to SKT's structures.
Not many people would make that move. Sword goes in with no minion wave, knowing at best I get a champion, at worst we get the mid lane turret before the minion wave crashes. Now they can push in the minion wave and reset and put down vision as well and sweep when necessary. They actually cheated the clock there. Usually it's all about when is your next wave coming. They just created a wave. It was a wave of Scion pressure.
Exactly, and it also caught SKT completely off guard and allowed them to brute force. That inner turret couldn't make their way in and got a flash from Teddy as well. Also, Marta with his flash down means that this Victor is going to be very, very difficult to protect in an upcoming fight, if we are going to see one. Sword and Khan facing off like they have been this entire series. Banshee's Veil done. for Faker in the mid lane. Catching up on that farm as well, only 6 behind Chovy now, who'd stretched that lead quite a little bit further as Faker's going to meet that minion wave towards the top side. This tower going to remain for just a little bit longer. It just feels like SKT are on a timer, and you know, having been around the LCK and Korean League of Legends for so long, saying that SKT is on a timer still feels like a weird thing to say, Papa.
It just feels like we took our vocabulary about 2015, 2016 SKT, even 2017 SKT, and now just say the same things about Griffin.
Yeah.
That's kind of a very weird thing for us long-term veterans of the LCK to consider, but something that I think everyone who's been watching the games can definitely understand. And a lot of those skirmishing advantages earlier eroded. You know, the redemption's never been used as far as I can tell in this game, but not in a relevant skirmish by the Olaf. That's the one item power spike that came in second item and then just hasn't been wielded. It's still going to be valuable. Talked already about the synergies this provides, but another cute one is that Olaf's W actually gives him more healing from all sources, up to 50% health when he's low. So that actually works selfishly on the redemption as well there. So selfishly, a nice little extra synergy that we missed when we first discussed it. Khan walks up, just trying to be annoying against his old off-the-rift friend in Sword. He's got that first magic resist item. Warmogs probably comes next, and then the unkillable times start to rain from the Scion.
Well, 4 members of SKT all grouped up. Big knock up onto Khan here towards the bottom side of the map. Just sustains his way out of that one. 4,000 health here for Sword. He's very durable. Mountain Drake now being contested. Tarzan in the pit. The train is going to start, but it's going to be the steal from Tarzan to begin this one. Redemption does come down as the gravity field. A great position to hold them off. And now Sword uses the stopwatch. Double knock up as Tarzan's getting himself into the fight. Killer Instinct very early as Marta is going to be the first one to fall down. First blood at 28 minutes and make it a double as the bottom lane is destroyed.
Griffin get to fight front to back, and that's with the Sandra taking a sweet time on making the entrance. SKT just didn't seem to know their strength. They were just going full defense on trying to get away there. And the icing on the cake is also the smite away by Tarzan in like 1v3.
Yeah. Teddy very close to getting his Rabbidan's death cap after that one, but didn't have enough money. And SKT, that feels like they've been happy to scale up next to Griffin, but you look down the rosters, Griffin with a team fight composition that excels in the late game, you do never want to take that gamble. Tarzan gets on in there, doesn't need the Q to land.
But watch this with the map hack. Scion goes in 1v4, no damage near him, no backup coming. Lissandra's still chilling on the top side. And by the time they engage, it's front to back. That's where 80 carries win. That's why in tank metas, it's defined by 80 carry play. This ends up being front to back because SKT have a burst mage comp against front lines that start as Scion, end with ulting Aatrox. They can't find access to anyone else. Viper comes and swoops in. And it just feels like SKT should have been in for a good time, not a long time. They decide to stick around for that long time, and they shouldn't be surprised if they find a loss in game number 1.
Yeah, and we've been joking about no rush 20 games for a very long time. That's exactly what this was. It's been basically zero aggression.
It was a no rush 28-minute game.
It was a no rush 28-minute game. I mean, they were feeling the waters after 20 minutes, you know. There was a couple of summoner spells maybe, but it feels like there was 0 summoner spells apart from Faker's cleanse in the early game. No one flashed, no one made any of these aggressive plays, and it just plays into what Griffin wanted to do.
Would you say that based on the information we have, SKT played here? Because it seems like fear. It seems like too much respect because it's inaction. We've seen inaction by SKT at times where they could have taken action, and while now we see Khan walking up and trying to harass. Can he get a solo kill? It'd be the start of something.
Yeah, looking for it. The Vessel Voyage is going to be coming in, but it actually got cancelled, I believe. Teddy's going to make his way down, and Khan going to get punished. Oh, no, he's not. Disdain gets him out of the way, and Viper has to use his stopwatch. Cleared, diving forward, but the supercharge from Viper keeps him safe. SKT unable to find anything more, but Khan does survive.
A redeeming factor on both sides there extends the fight for comically long, and that means Viper's flash is down. Very pivotal cooldown, means he can't really killer instant in aggressively. Needs to keep it for a defensive move. As all this happened, top side of the map is largely going to be controlled by Griffin. Now SKT need to react, and it has to be soon because Viper's already on the Baron.
He's on the Baron with 4 items as well. This is AP Kaiser just ripping through the Baron at the moment. They are going to pull off, respecting SKT.
A lot of respect there. Remember that Rise ult isn't up to check. It would have been a little bit risky there. Look for the check. The It wasn't going to be coming, but Griffin go for the percentage play. They don't want to try to force it down. They don't want anything resembling a 50-50. We back away. The table setting continues, but now the deck may be stacked. The gold lead is at 5,600 to the side of Griffin.
And it's the Kai'Sa of the LPL special. The AP Kai'Sa coming in for Viper. Zhonya's Hourglass just completed after the Nashor's Tooth, so he does a hell of a lot of damage and can burst you extraordinarily hard with the Void Seeker if it is going to land. I feel like this is the build that scales ridiculously well into the later stages of the game, just given the fact that you get so much flat AP from the Rabadons if he goes for it as his 6th item.
There's been a lot of nerfs, so I feel like you can't mindlessly go AP Kai'Sa anymore, but this is a very mindful game to go AP Kai'Sa. AP Kai'Sa weaker in its construction because you're sitting on things like Stinger that don't feel so good as a 3rd item, and you still go for a bit of AD for the transformations you can get. This is triple transformation build here, attack speed, AD, and AP. So triple evolution, more greedy, but they had so much ramp-up time. Why not go for the greedier build? Also, you really need the plasmas to be stacked by your teammates to get the same amount of damage because the amount of flat damage on the first few with the ratio going down is lower. Well, Sion has just the most CC, Aatrox, Lissandra, Braum. There's so much hard crowd control that literally the setup is reliable from your teammates. You don't even need to be there with the Hurricane autos, but the finishing going to be ultra reliable from the AP Kai'Sa.
Yeah, just insane. And it might be the Banshee's Veil and Zhonya's option here for Viper to make sure that this burst damage composition can't just delete him off the map. Might be the option, does have a Null Magic Mantle now built up. Seen a little bit of that. So you mentioned defensive choices, utility choices, certainly more of them available with this Kai'Sa build. Sword, gonna start up the train, Redemption going to come in, but this time it's on the side of Griffin. Khan immediately extraordinarily too low, and right in the back line, he's gonna be the first one to go down, the 3rd kill of the game, going to Viper. Can he get more Killer Instinct? Says yes, as that's 4 kills for Viper and 4 kills in this game.
They knew that Khan had no way out. They take him down in the front line, and then SKT, we already know the deck is stacked against them in a front-to-back team fight. Kai'Sa took her time, didn't have flash, so couldn't go in early with a killer. It's only the double kill. The Penta has not come in a 2nd time on the Kai'Sa, but how about an Infernal Drake to make those AP values go way up?
Yep, is going to be able to pick that one up very easily, evening out the Drake count. Mountain and Infernal over to Griffin. The double Infernal still there for SKT, but Khan feels like he's just caught out.
Yeah, interruption on the E there. Sion goes in, and then Chobi's self-ulted, Aatrox is ulted, and Sion is Sion. That you can't fight front to back. This is what was sacrificed, not going for additional ranged AD carry. And then from here, it's all about the ducks being in the row and waiting to see how many are going to fall on SKT. It's only 2, it's only the front line. An Infernal off the back, and no light at the end of the tunnel, as far as we can see for SKT.
Exactly. Teddy did a lot of damage, but wasn't enough because Griffin all fighting as a unit, and Sword, you mentioned the amount of CC that he had. He got a 4-man knock-up with his Q. After landing his ultimate pretty perfectly as far as Sion placement, that is exactly what you want in these team fights, and you can see the 4-0-0 is the scoreline for Viper.
And my disappointment in the draft is I feel like you need to try to test Griffin by taking something away. It ended up being the Olaf, which is a nice pick so far that we've seen recently, but Sword is 5-0 Sion, 2-0 Urgot, and had a pretty unconvincing game on Victor where he self-counterpicked himself Victor into Jace, and then it kind of went better than expected. That's really all we can say for them. Yes, Sword played Jace in the Kesper Cup. That was a while ago, and who knows what he's playing in scrims. Yes, there's a chance that he steps up on another pick and it doesn't work, but at least go for something that feels scientific, that feels testable. Doesn't feel like SKT are testing too much, and right now haven't played to their own win conditions and seem to be hitting and hoping in this late game.
And I feel like they almost got scared in the draft there as well, because at the very last pick there was an option as Sword. May need to run away from this one. Teleport going to come in here from Griffin, and Viper comes down to pick up the delivered kill. That bait was pretty damn good from Griffin, but this is going to be the answer. SKT realm warping onto the Baron. They've got a lot of damage available with Teddy and Faker in this pit. Tarzan going to try and make it a 50-50. As in goes Sword, going to get another decent knock-up. 50-50 going to be won by Clit. SKT take down the Baron, but the Infernal Chains land on everyone. Tarzan has the World Ender. The CC is landing beautifully from Griffin, and Tarzan's going to continue the fight. Teddy soloed out by the jungler of Griffin, and Faker looking to get finished off. Viper desperately wants a supercharger back, doesn't need it, as the Acathian Rain going to pick up the 7th kill, then the 8th going down for Sword. Griffin are steamrolling SKT.
Griffin able to buy enough time for the damage starts to do the damage, not even with Viper really there for the majority of it. SKT make the right move. That's what you have to do when people are sent bot lane with no teleport. But their Baron speed's going to be slow because they don't have a Baron damager. They don't have an AD carry. They make the best decision they can at 36 minutes, but the first 36 let them down, Atlas, and that means they will lose game number 1.
They're going to. Khan and Mata are alive, but this push is going to continue. Viper has so much DPS. That Devour is not going to do anything as Mata going to go down. It'll be a double as Viper will be able to get the next kill as well. Nexus turrets have been deleted, and the Nexus will follow 9-0. A shellacking if ever I've seen one, and Griffin remain the most dominant team in Korea, at least after game 1.
But game number 1 definitely poses a lot of questions for SKT. We came into the season super hyped for this matchup. First denied for a Kesper Cup, then waiting for it in week 3 of the LCK. But SKT have had their hiccups. When they've been on, they've been on. When they've been off, they haven't been able to get the most out of some of their drafts. And it feels like here, they had very narrow win conditions around early one-item power spikes. And then the redemption wasn't rushed. And we said, okay, maybe it could still work. But they didn't really manage to find anything out of their draft, and the light at the end of the tunnel was all Griffins. It ended up being a very comfortable victory. And when it came to the predictions, I put out the poll and said, what do people think when it comes to Griffin versus SKT today? People weren't voting with their hearts, they were voting with their heads. 2-0 Griffin. The 39% majority of the 2,500 votes I got on Twitter. 2-1 Griffin, the next 30%. So 70% or so of fans are saying it's going to be Griffin favored. And I think that's based on the play, where Griffin have, on the whole, really understood what their drafts have been about. They did it again here. It was in a fashion that kind of will draw some jeers because it's a wait a while draft. It's scaling in a meta that in some other teams will be able to punish that scaling. In game number 1, that team isn't SKT, and the scaling gets away looking pretty clean.
Yep, certainly did. And SKT, they were tested. Griffin said, look, we're going to build a late-game team fighting composition.
Come at us, bro.
Yeah, if you can beat us in the early game, we're going to fight you from 8,000 gold down. They never actually had a gold deficit to worry about at all, and it felt like another day in the office for Griffin. Sword, of course, playing out of his mind. The late-game team fights were beautiful, but you said very comfortable on the Scion. Tarzan looks unstoppable every time he gets the Aatrox. This is comfort down the line for Griffin. SKT, they need to mix it up because look at this gold graph. That's about as linear as you like.
0-10-0, no turrets. So only Drakes and Barons are what SKT were able to claim in this game. Not a perfect game, but not probably pretty much the perfect game to try to batter down SKT fans who want to see a lifeline, want to show that they can compete with Griffin, but 17 times in a row, Griffin have been too good, and a betting man would say 18 looks on the cards.
And it was almost double the damage done by SKT in that game as well. A lot of it was the victor, but just shows that DPM stat makes some sense. Griffin, they do damage when they need to, but guys, they're going to have to do it again. Game number 2 right around the corner.